Okay, good morning, everybody, to those of you that are live and those of you that are on Zoom. And we are continuing in Tehillim. We're starting a new Tehillim today. That's Mizmor Samech Ches, which is 68. And we will see the opening words of Rabbi Foyer, that was as we usually do. And he gives his introduction. And the introduction of Samech Ches 68 is the following. The theme of this particular Tehillim is referring to the revelation of Har Sinai, which Dovid HaMelech explains in tremendous eloquence and ecstasy, as we'll see. And as we know that the revelation of Maimon Har Sinai, when the Torah was revealed at Har Sinai, it's something that had an effect on the entire world. And its impact, actually, as we see, was second only to Brias Ha'olam, to the creation of the world. The second most impactful experience and event that ever took place in the world, in the history of the world, was when the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael. As we know, it says that in the beginning of the Chumash, when it says Yom HaShishi, that the sixth day, Chazal ask over there, why does it say Yom HaShishi, the sixth day? Every other day is Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi. There's no hey. Why does it say Yom HaShishi on the sixth day? And Chazal teach us because it's not only referring to the sixth day of creation. It's talking about the sixth day of the month of Sivan, when Klal Yisrael will eventually come and have the opportunity to stand by Har Sinai and receive the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, if Klal Yisrael will receive the Torah on Yom HaShishi, on that sixth day of Sivan, so many thousands of years later, so then the whole world has a purpose to exist. If Klal Yisrael will not receive the Torah on Yom HaShishi, on the sixth day of Sivan, then Hashem says, my world has no purpose. And it will go back to Soyev Avot, to unformed and void nothingness. So as he's writing over, the second greatest event in the history of the world is Maimon Har Sinai, which itself gives the continuity to creation itself. Now, what happened, what took place when the Torah was given, is that Klal Yisrael went from being a nation that was a slave nation. We were a nation that was in Mitzrayim for 210 years of backbreaking slavery, 400 years altogether. We were ridiculed and despised by the nations of the world. But once the Torah was given, suddenly we are catapulted to the status of the Am HaNivchar, or the chosen people. We shift overnight. We become the Torah nation. Rav Avigdor Miller speaks at length about this idea that which separates us from every other nation in the world is that we are the Torah nation. We became this chosen nation, and therefore we were a nation that was rising heavenward, as he puts it, in obedience with our divine summons, meaning we are ready now to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever he's going to tell us to do, we are ready to do. That means that, as we know, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to give Torah to Klal Yisrael, before he gave it to us, he went to all the 70 nations of the world. And he gave them a chance, because he knew that one day going to come and complain. If he would have given us the Torah, we would have said yes, we would have accepted it upon ourselves. Hashem said, fine, I'll give you a chance. Yishmael, you want the Torah? He said, Mak Sibe, what does it say inside the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Yishmael, it says that you should not murder. Oh, you should not murder? He said, I don't know if you've been watching the news lately in Eretz Yisrael. It's something that we can't hold ourselves back. That's our nature. Forget it, we don't want the Torah. Esav comes along and he says, Esav, would you like the Torah? He says, well, what does it say? It says you should not steal. I can't steal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's our life, that's what we do. And so on and so forth. To every single nation he went and he told them something that would be very hard for them. And if one was too hard, the other 612 was impossible. But he came to Klal Yisrael and he said, Klal Yisrael, would you like the Torah? And we said the famous words of Na'aseh v'nishma, yes. If it's coming from you, Hashem, we accept it wholeheartedly. As a result of that, we were catapulted to tremendous status, and the other nations of the world, they were rejected at that time. They had a chance, they could have gotten it, but they said no, and therefore they were rejected. Now, what does that create in the tension between Klal Yisrael and the rest of the world? And again, as I said, there's never any coincidence in Tehillim Shir how pertinent and how timely everything is, the words of Dovid HaMelech. So he writes over here in the introduction the following: as HaKadosh Baruch Hu drew closer to Klal Yisrael, the other nations recoiled further from the Jewish people. Each fresh outpouring of divine love for the sacred nation was met with a new wave of bitter hatred by the Goyim, by the Gentiles that lived around us. And he's speaking over here about something called anti-Semitism, which is the buzzword in the world today. And he quotes a famous Gemara. The Gemara speaks about all the different names of Midbar Sinai, the desert that they were in, where they came from, where they went, what every single name actually means. And then the Gemara expounds upon Sinai, the language of Sinai itself. Why is this the place that the Torah was chosen to be given in, on Har Sinai, in Midbar Sinai, in the wilderness of Sinai? There's nothing that is by chance in the Torah, and if that's the name of the place, there must be some very deep meaning there. So the Gemara says, Midbar Sinai. What is the language of Sinai? Sin, Yud, Nun, Yud. Sheyarda Sina la'evdei kechavim elav. Because when the Torah was given over to Klal Yisrael, Sina, hatred, which again is just a play on the word. Sinai is with a samich, but this is with a sin, but it doesn't matter. You can put them, it's same sound. Sina, Sheyardu Sina la'evdei kechavim elav. There was a tremendous hatred that came down to the world when the Jewish people received the Torah. Why is that? So he's explaining. Because once that we became a nation that was different, we were elevated, we were raised up to a level where our Kodesh Baruch Hu is showing the whole world we are different than everybody else, and we have special status with our Kodesh Baruch Hu. We have mitzvahs that shows Hashem's love for us, that the connection that we have. No other nation has this connection. So therefore, Sheyardu Sina la'evdei kechavim elav, tremendous hatred came down to the non-Jewish world at the time that the Torah was given. They despise us because that we have Torah. Again, we're coming in a few weeks to Hanukkah, and this, in fact, is the entire battle between Yavan and Klal Yisrael. It's not that Yavan wanted to kill us like every other nation that ever rose up against us. They just wanted to extract the neshama and extract the Torah from Klal Yisrael to show that you're really not so special. There's really nothing so miraculous about you that's any different than anybody else in the world. And if you'll just get rid of the Torah, you'll get rid of the neshama, you'll get rid of the ruchnias, and live a life like us, so then we can coexist together as one. We can put a nice bumper sticker on the back of our car that we can coexist with the Greeks. But the reason that they hate us is because we're different. And our difference is Torah. And the more that a Jew is involved in the Torah, and the more that a Jew is living that Torah, that is Ma'amid Har Sinai, and therefore that anti-Semitism is going to be something that will be apparent. And then the Gemara says, Umashemoi, what's the real name of the mountain that the Torah was given on? Says the Gemara, Chorev Shemoi. The real name of Har Sinai is not Har Sinai. That's just a secondary name. The real name is Chorev, Har Chorev. What is that word? Upligi de Rabbi Abahu. So there's a machlekes of Rabbi Abahu. What exactly is this word Chorev mean? Har Sinai. So the Gemara says, Har Sinai Shemai. One says that it's really Har Sinai is the name of the mountain. V'lo menikra Har Chorev. So then why is it called Har Chorev? Sheyarda Chor b'la'evdei kechavim elav, because ruination came to the non-Jewish world as a result of the Torah being given. Chorev is a language of chorban, of destruction. The nations of the world were destroyed when the Torah was given over to Har Sinai. Why were they destroyed? Because we are now the owners of the faith that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to the world. We're the owners of morality. We're the ones that are going to have a connection. We're the ones that are going to do mitzvahs. We're the ones that are going to have a higher level of neshama and raise ourselves closer to Hashem. So the whole world, because they refuse to receive the Torah, their chorban, they are destroyed as a result of it. So that means over here then that the Torah itself when it was given, it created a hatred from the rest of the world because they were destroyed. They got destroyed when we got the Torah. They could have said yes, they said no. So therefore we get it. We are now the elite and supreme nation, the chosen nation of the world, and therefore they now don't have that connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that they could have had, but we are the ones that are the bearer of that relationship, and therefore it drives the non-Jewish world crazy. And therefore says Rav Foyer, you have to know that when the Torah was given at Har Sinai, unfortunately, it created the dynamics of anti-Semitism in the world. Until that time, they hated Klal Yisrael. Whatever, they hated us. But this brings about a reason to hate us, and the real reason they hate us is because we represent something they could have had and they don't have. Now, we have mentioned before, this is, I guess we'll have to try to figure out how we're going to put these two ideas together, that one of the major reasons that the Goyim despise Klal Yisrael and that there is such anti-Semitism is when Klal Yisrael is not living up to the favored nation status and the lofty levels that we're supposed to be on. When we begin to assimilate, when we put ourselves into the world of the non-Jewish world and we become like them and we're living with them and we're marrying them and we're working in their business and owning their business and they're working for us, that's what really drives them crazy, the way that the Netziv and others say. The Gemara over here is saying that since the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael, that was the Chorban, that was the initial destruction for the non-Jewish world. That's what drove them crazy, that they realized they lost out on something they could have had, and therefore they hate us as a result. So on one hand, they hate us because we have Torah. On the other hand, they hate us when we abandon our Torah and we end up becoming very much like them. So you really can't win. That's the truth. You really can't win as a Jew. However they're going to look at us, and we find this by the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, and we find it now also over here in Hamas. There's no distinction between the frum and the not frum. There's no distinction between the one that is celebrating in a music festival on Simchas Torah and the family that's sitting in their home and they're keeping Shabbos. There's no distinction. And in the Holocaust, you found very often there was it's such an unusual way in which they would deal. They decided to kill every single Jew. But they were infuriated by the frum Jews. And there are many stories where they would specifically, they would ridicule and they would ostracize and they would shame and they would embarrass the Rabbanim. They would destroy the Svarim, the Gemaras and the Sefer Torah and the Shuls because they understood that the strength of Klal Yisrael is the Torah. The strength of Klal Yisrael are the Rabbanim of every generation that are like the Einei Ha'eda. They're the eyes of the generation to teach and to show what are you supposed to do, how are you supposed to live, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from us. So on one hand, they hated every Jew. The ones that were assimilated were bothering them. They married their daughters. They were working in commerce, in business, in money marketing, in entertainment, and everything, in culture. It drives them crazy. How could they be so successful? At the same time, they recognize that's not really the full koyach, the real power of the Jew. The power of the Jew is the Torah Jew. That's the real power. That's what gives us the ability to go through every single generation, all the gullus, all the exiles, everything that we go through is there's one thing that keeps us united. And that's the Torah. That's always been what the beacon of light for the Jewish people in the darkest moments of the gullus, of the exile that we're in. So they hate us because we have Torah. They hate us because that we are assimilated. They hate the whole package of Klal Yisrael, whichever side of the fence you're going to be on, it's always going to elicit the anti-Semitism. Is there a way to fight anti-Semitism? Everything that's going on in the world today, people are right now pouring in millions and millions and millions of dollars to fight anti-Semitism. The Gemara says that's what happened when the Torah was given. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that way. Now how are you going to fight that? With all the money in the world, with all the education in the world, with all the awareness in the world, how are you going to fight that? You can't fight that. It's a mitzias, it's called reality. Reality is that when the Torah came to Klal Yisrael, it created Sina, hatred, and Chorban, and destruction to the world. To the non-Jewish world, in our relationship with them. That's it. And we know that there's another thing that when we assimilate, it drives them crazy. So there's no way to win. The only thing that is going to solve the problem of anti-Semitism is when Mashiach will come. When Mashiach will come, and everybody's eyes, we're going to see in the Tehillim over here, when everybody's eyes are going to be open, they're going to realize what exactly is going on. Then they're going to say, "Oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yes, now I understand. The Jewish people are special. They do receive. They do deserve all the honor that you give them. Fine, we'll stop being on top of them. We'll stop fighting them. We'll stop being nasty to them. We'll stop making horrible everything." I just saw today in some Jordanian coffee shop, they made Rahman a Holocaust coffee drink with the marshmallows with Israeli flags on it, and they burn the marshmallows. That's supposed to remind people of the crematoriums of the Holocaust. But the crazy world that we live in. That's the world that we're living in right now. So that's only going to stop when HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is revealed to the entire universe. And then nobody can say anything. Then they have to bow themselves and humble themselves and acknowledge HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is running the world. Up until that point, it's going to be a struggle. Maybe in America they'll try to do away. I personally, for whatever my opinion is worse, I often think that the more that you try to fight it, it's like stoking the flames, and you're making the anti-Semites even more angry and more furious. Why do the Jews get such special privileges, and why do they have this, and why do they have that? So it's a very delicate road that we're walking right now. Anti-Semitism has arisen its very ugly head in America after it's been under the surface for decades, and now it's getting in the forefront, and we're seeing it. And it's not only the pro-Hamas rallies, it's many, many people that are there on the internet posting their ideologies and their theologies and their insights into the Jewish people, and their nasty, nasty comments. It's not a pretty world out there right now. And this Tehillim is addressing these issues. It's addressing the issues of anti-Semitism. So again, like I said, it's not for coincidence that this is where we're holding right now in Tehillim. So let's embark on Samech Ches, number 68. So the first pasuk says, Lamatseach leDovid mizmor shir. To him who grants victory, by Dovid, a mizmor shir. This is a psalm that Dovid is speaking about. And again, like Rav Foyer explained, and this Rav Hirsch explains also, the victory is that Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim. They survived the torture. They became a nation, a cohesive nation. They arrive at Har Sinai. They codified what it means to be a Jew and what it means to believe in Hashem. We receive the law. That's what Torah is. Torah is Hayrah. It means the law. We received a system of laws at Har Sinai that give us from morning until night, every single second of the day, a way that we are to live our lives according to the way of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as we see that as a result of being this most miraculous nation, somehow we have survived thousands of years over all of the exiles that Klal Yisrael goes into. As we pointed out, there never was a nation in history that has traveled to as many places as the Jewish people have traveled, and no matter where we go, even when it looks grim, we still survive. And therefore, that's a victory of Klal Yisrael. That's what Dovid HaMelech is speaking about over here, that we're on the winning team, which is very satisfying, especially when you see what's going on in the world where there's so many people that are against us. You have to know you're on the winning team. When the team is on the road and they're playing on somebody else's home court advantage, if they're the winning team, they're still the winning team wherever they go. When Michael Jordan was in his heyday and he was Air Jordan stuffing the ball into the hoop wherever he went, it didn't matter if he's in Chicago or he's in Miami, Florida. It didn't matter. He's the winning team. He's going to win wherever he goes. Klal Yisrael is the winner. Wherever we go, we're the winning team. That means whether we're in Eretz Yisrael, or we happen to be in America right now, or those that were in Europe, or those that are in Spain, or those that were somewhere in Australia, it doesn't matter. Everybody in Klal Yisrael is a winner as long as you're connected to the coach. And the coach is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So as long as we are connected to the source of everything, so then, says Dovid HaMelech, Mizmor Shir, this is a song of praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're the winners. We are always the winning team. We just have to look at ourselves as such. Says the second pasuk base, Yakum Elokim, where Hashem to rise up, Yafutsu Oivav, he should know that his enemies will be scattered. V'yanusu misanov mipanov, and those that hate Hashem, they would flee before his countenance. If Hashem would rise up, he didn't rise up yet. He's still hidden. He's still very concealed. There's a lot of exile that's going on. The Gullus, on one hand, Gullus is the language of exile where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden, but Gullus, as we know also, is a language of Gilui, revelation. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu conceals to reveal, which means eventually through the Gullus, through the darkness of the Gullus, that's how Hashem is going to reveal himself. But right now he's not. But if he would rise up, if he would reveal himself, he would show himself, and all the colors of Hashem in this world, the enemies would run away. Says Rav Hirsch, if Hashem would rise up in all of his might, the wicked of the earth would perish immediately. All the conspiracies of the foes of his law and the order would be scattered. They would disappear. All the naysayers, all Hamas, all the enemies that rose up against us all over the years, that's it. Gone. They would disappear. Many of them would just perish immediately, and the ones that would somehow be able to survive, they would just be scattered all over the place. And all of those who hate HaKadosh Baruch Hu's moral law, the Torah, and would spread this hatred among the men, which is what they've done in this world, they would flee before his presence. That means when Mashiach is going to come, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is finally going to be in a situation where it's time for the ultimate revelation of his countenance, so everyone that is the naysayer and fights against Klal Yisrael and goes against Hashem, everyone is going to run away from him because they're going to be in absolute fright and fear of the awesomeness of Hashem. However, says Rav Hirsch, HaKadosh Baruch Hu employs other means to bring about the advent of his kingdom on earth. He's not ready just for the instantaneous revelation of Hashem. There's a whole process that has to take place. And again, I think as we mentioned maybe last week, the more that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, the less you could argue about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more that his countenance, that his presence is involved in the world, in our lives, the more clear it becomes who Hashem is. All of your negativity and all of the rhetoric that goes against Hashem, it begins to be perish, as the Rav Hirsch is saying over here. And if we look at Klal Yisrael today, and we see what's going on, specifically in Eretz Yisrael, and that is that you had for generations since the state was started in 1948, a venomous hatred for religion. Venomous. That there are people, we used to have a handyman who worked in our house. He was an Israeli Baal Tshuva. He told me that when he was a kid, he was not allowed to have a bar mitzvah. He grew up in Tel Aviv. He was not allowed to have a bar mitzvah. He said his grandfather, brought him to shul one day, quickly wrapped tefillin on him, that he should have something, and then they yanked him out of there, and that was it. That was his whole exposure to Judaism all of his life. He came to America, and he learned that there's something called a Jew that's not an Israeli, and he learned what it means to be Jew, and he became a Baal Tshuva. There's another story of the guy that I told many times. His father hated religion. He saw his son once in Israel kiss a mezuzah. He didn't talk to his son for a month. So we're talking about when a country that was started on venomous hatred. We all know the stories. I don't have to speak Lashon Hara about Klal Yisrael, but they took the Temani, the Yemenite children, away from their parents. They stole them when they were born. They stole them when they were little kids coming in because they didn't want religious children in Eretz Yisrael. They told the parents, your son died in birth. Your child died in birth. And then they went and they shipped them off to non-religious families so that the kids would not become religious. They brought the kids in. Have you ever seen the traditional Yemenite child with the long, long payas and a hat like this and a robe? They chopped off their payas. They put them into regular garments. They took it away from them so they would not know what it means to be a Jew. So that's the foundation of the country and of the state. And therefore there's been a push for, we're talking about 70 years, to hate religion. And that's why in the school systems, they don't even learn Shema Yisrael. And that's why they don't learn Tanakh. And that's why they don't learn what it means, the land of Israel. They don't learn any of that. Nothing in the secular school systems. So you have children that have grown up. They're already several generations later. They don't know what it means to be a Jew. And they look at a frum Jew with a beard, with a hat, a woman with a tichel, with a sheitel, who's dressed sneers, and they think these archaic, crazy old people from Europe, or from Yemen, where are they coming from? What is wrong with them? But now, at this time, at this juncture in history, that is changing. Because everybody realized, because of what Hamas did, they don't make any distinction between what kind of hat you're wearing, or yarmulke you are wearing, or you're not wearing, or how tznius or not tznius you are. You're a Jew, you're one of us. We're all the same. And the fact that the frum community has reacted in such a glorious way to everything that is going on, the chesed, and the rachmanis, and the mercy, and the compassion, and the helping out, and going here and going there, and taking care of everybody. There's an organization, Zaka. Zaka it's a miraculous organization. They are the ones that had to go into the kibbutzim afterwards and scrape the remnants of the burnt bodies off the ground. And they're now still working with the DNA and everything to be able to identify people who they haven't been able to find in over 40, 50 days already. And they just were able to trace the DNA of one of the girls, 12-year-old girl, Rahman al-San. Just on Shabbos, they were able to identify that these are her remnants, these are what we found of her. And they're from. They're all from. And they're going around and bringing dignity to all of the victims that were slaughtered and they were murdered, so that the families could have some peace of mind. They can make a levaya, they can make a funeral, they could sit shiva, they could be able to deal and cope with what's going on. And then they're being sent therapists and the psychologists and everything they need. So the overlap, the connection of the frum and the non-frum is becoming so close right now that it's a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence. And even the child that grew up in a family of 3-4 generations of vehement hatred for the religious people are beginning to soften up their hearts. And they're beginning to realize there's something special about being a Jew. And being a Jew doesn't mean being Israeli. Being a Jew means being a Yehudi. And a Yehudi is someone who has Torah in their life. And that means I want mitzvahs also. And that's why they have a shortage of tzitzis and a shortage of tefillin right now. And that's why they're making little cases for candles for all the women to light their candles Friday night. And the mikvahs are packed, and the people want to start learning. And I heard from one of in the name of a big Kira person here in America who deals a lot with the Israelis that are here in America. He said it's never been as easy in all of his years to do Kiruv right now. The Israelis, secular Israelis in America, they left Israel a long time ago because they wanted to get away, and they came over here and they became more American than Israeli. They're yearning for some meaning right now in their life. What does it mean to be a Jew? How do I connect myself? How do I make this world a better place? And therefore, that's what he's saying over here. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, you can't fight HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. You only fight because you don't see Hashem. You just see what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done in this world. So you want to be angry with the Jews, you be angry with the Jews. You want to be destructive, be destructive. You want to hate them, so you hate them. You want to destroy them, you try to destroy them. But once Hashem is there, what are you fighting? Fighting Hashem? Hashem is wicked. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is cruel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all loving, all knowing, compassionate, everything. Rahman is merciful. So when that's revealed, the truth becomes revealed. People gravitate towards it, and that's what we're seeing right now in the world. There is a natural gravitation of the Jewish heart and the Jewish soul all over the world, but the Frat specifically in Eretz Yisrael right now, people are coming aboard like never ever before. Says the next verse, Ki hindoif ashan tindoif, but even as smoke, Kihimes doinag, that is slowly fading away. Mibnei eish, Kihimes, that's slowly fading away. Doinag mibnei eish, and wax melts before fire. Yoivdu Rishoyim Ibnei Elokim. Just like smoke slowly fades away and it dissipates, and wax will melt when it's brought in connection with fire, so too you should know that the Rishoyim, the wicked people of this world, they will perish and they will fade away in front of the presence of Hashem. So the pasuk over here is equating the natural world of smoke disappearing and wax getting melted by the fire, that the Rishoyim, so too, when they are exposed to the fires of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when they're exposed to the power of Hashem, they will disappear and they will dissipate as well. Says Rav Hirsch on these words, really beautiful ideas, and he says that smoke fades away on its own accord. Right? When there's smoke, it doesn't do anything, it just starts to disappear. And also, of course, if wind will come and blow on it, also it sends it away. And it gradually grows fainter and fainter. That's how smoke works. What about wax? Wax cannot exist when it's in the presence of fire. That's what wax is. Wax is there, fire comes along, it melts it down. So too are the enemies and the haters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah. They're all going to perish just like that. When Hashem will reveal His power and His might, just as the smoke fades away, they'll be gone, they'll fade away. Just as fire comes and burns the wax, they're going to get burned up. A column of smoke rises heavenward. It's black and it's threatening. But if you close your eyes and you open them a few minutes later, you'll see that the smoke clouds blow off in small puffs and they gradually fade away. In the like manner, all the elements that conspire against Hashem's world order, they will fade away of themselves as well. And I think that if we think about history, you realize how true it is. At the smokiest moments in the history of Klal Yisrael, where it looked like it was impossible that the enemy would ever lose steam, and it looked like the enemy is going to come and destroy and pillage and plunder and kill and everything they're going to do and destroy us and send us out. If a Jew just closes his eyes for a certain amount of time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take care of history and suddenly it will just disappear. And that's really, I think, the famous words of Mark Twain as he came and he looked at the history of the Jewish people, and he said these words. He said the idea that the Jews have been persecuted in every generation, and many nations have risen up against us. But if you think about it, he writes, they all disappeared. They dissipated. They evaporated into thin air, into nothingness. And the Jew continues to move on. He progresses, he moves forward, he rebuilds, he becomes strong, he keeps doing his job. So what do we see? Says Rav Hirsch, close your eyes. Just close your eyes and you'll see it's going to disappear. That's the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. Because as He reveals Himself more and more and more and more, they cannot hold up to that power. And he goes on, continually writes, that this process of disintegration will be hastened by the added impetus of the events of history which are guided by Hashem. And weak and devoid power, they will dissolve and vanish. Once again, who's running the world? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. We can't worry. We can't get frightened. We're not supposed to get anxious. Again, as we said already many times, if you're hooked up to the news all day long, then you will be frightened, and you will be anxious, and you will be sad, and you will be worried. That's how it's going to work, because that's what they do a great job of, instilling fear into the hearts of the people that are watching it. But if you're living in Hashem's world, and you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running things, and as we've already seen, miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle that is happening right now for Klal Yisrael, yes, it is very tragic. Every single soldier and every single Jew and every policeman, every single one that loses a life is tragic beyond belief. And you look at these faces of some of these young soldiers, they're sweet and they have a whole life ahead of them, 20 years old, 21 years old. Some of them reservists married with children. It's a rachmanis l'Islam, such a thing that we should lose even one. And on top of all of that, though, we see, as many of the soldiers are saying, miracles upon miracles upon miracles. They cannot explain why the things are happening the way that they are. I told over a story on Friday night. I don't know that anybody was here, so I can tell it over on Sunday morning. There's a rabbi whose name I believe is Rabbi Baruch Rosenberg, and he is in the army, and he's like the religious, spiritual guide of the soldiers and everyone that is there in Gaza, one of them at least, and he has to always be briefed on what is going on, because Khalil, if there's tragedy and there's casualties and everything, they have to take care of the bodies in the right way. So there is an intelligent briefing or debriefing meeting that takes place every day with the commanders, and Rabbi Rosenberg is allowed to come into that meeting as well to find out what exactly is going on. Are there injuries? Are there casualties? What does he need to do for that day? What do the soldiers need? The morale? What can he do for them? So he walks in to the meeting one day, and he sees on the faces of all the commanders, their faces are as white as a ghost. And they're just sitting there, each and every one of them, in total disbelief. And he says, Rabbi, what's the matter? What's the matter? Is everything okay? And they said, look. And he looks up, there's screens there, and those screens have video images of drones that are out there in Gaza sending back the live video messages and everything so they can see what's going on. And they look on the screen and they see that there are 3 huge tanks, and these 3 tanks have 12 chayalim, 12 soldiers each on them. And these 3 tanks got stuck in the middle of Gaza. They were sitting ducks, and the Hamas, Yimach Shalom, they brought their RPGs, their handheld missiles, and they blew up all 3 of these tanks. And the commander looks at Rabbi Rosenberg and says, that's 36 soldiers in one shot. What are we supposed to say to their families? What are we supposed to say to the other men? This is devastating. As they're sitting there in total shock and disbelief, the phone rings of this commander. And on the other end, he hears him saying, Commander, anachnu beseder, we're all okay, we're all okay. He says, what? Who's calling? You can't be calling me. I just watched you get blown up. No, you're not going to believe what happened. You won't believe what happened. He said, I'm in the first tank. We're driving the tank into Gaza over there. And one of the belts on the tank malfunctioned. And the tank would not move. So we couldn't move an inch. And we realized that to be stuck in the middle of Gaza with a tank that is not moving, you are a sitting duck, they're going to blow us up. So we quickly decided that we're going to go out of the tank and we're going to run for cover. So we opened up the hatch, and all 12 of us ran out. Baruch Hashem, we made it, and we took cover outside so that we would be safe. The tank that was behind us saw that we stopped, saw that we all got out of there. They figured there must be some booby trap or something over there. We got to get out of there also. And they all ran out, and they took cover. And the third tank watched what was going on, and they saw 2 tanks empty out, 24 soldiers. They figured it must be very big danger. They ran out of the tank also. They took cover. As soon as the last guy took cover, boom, 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 they blew up the tanks. We're all alive. The commander, in absolute shock and ecstasy of that his soldiers were saved, he turned to Rabbi Rosenberg and said, Rabbi Rosenberg, do you see what just happened? It's a miracle. And we know that miracles like this are happening because of people like you and all of you men that are davening and you're learning and you're doing mitzvot for us. Please keep it up, don't stop. So that's the world that we're living in right now. The most secular commander in the army recognizes the only reason that we are surviving the battle is because there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu involved. Hashem's revealing himself. When Hashem reveals himself, you can't say no. And therefore, just close your eyes, says Rav Hirsch. Just close your eyes a little bit. All the enemies, they'll disappear. All of the tragedy, it will disappear. Why? Because they can't stand up to the music of Hashem. They cannot stand up to the koyach, to the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, everything else, just like he says, wax cannot exist in the presence of fire. The Rishoyim of this world, they will not be able to stand up against the presence of Hashem. The Eish Das, which is like the fires of Torah, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu lit upon this earth when he originally gave the Torah. And the more Torah that there is in the world, and the more mitzvahs there is in the world, the more tefillah there is in the world, those fires are flaming right now so strong, the enemies cannot stand up to it. And that's why many, many more of them, Baruch Hashem, are getting destroyed and getting detonated and running away in fear. And Klal Yisrael is pushing forward with the best that we can, because we're not walking by ourselves. Even, I think there's one of the heads over there, the IDF, every time he talks, he's all, we will do it, we will do it, we will kill it, we will destroy it. He never mentions Hashem, but he was somewhere, and one of the Chabad Shluchim said, Adoni, you need some tefillin today. So they took a video of him putting on his tefillin and bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into his life and into the battle and into the war, because without Hashem, it's a losing battle. So therefore, says Rav Hirsch, on these words of Dovid HaMelech, we have to recognize, and that is that all of the enemies, all of the haters of Klal Yisrael, all of those that are trying to destroy us, they will disappear. The more that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealed, and even in this world, that means they can begin to disappear. Says the next pasuk, V'tzadikim number Dalet 4. V'tzadikim yismechu, and the tzadikim will yismechu, they will rejoice. Ya'alzu, and they will be happy. Lifnei Elokim v'yasisu b'simcha, and they will blossom forth with gladness. So this one is the classical Rav Hirsch, the way that he has his grammatical languages. As we know, Rav Hirsch has a klal, he has a general principle in the Hebrew language, that any words that are similar to each other, either the way that they sound or the way that they're spelled, even if certain letters are different, those words are interrelated to each other, and therefore one word can shed light on the meaning of another word. So there's three expressions in this pasuk of joy. There's simcha, there's ya'altzu, aloitz, and there's yasisu, there's sisu, there's that kind of simcha. So Rav Hirsch says, what is the difference with all these three types of simcha that the pasuk is talking about? So simcha, sameach, samach, sin, sin, mem, ches, is related to the word semach, which means growing. And that means something we've spoken about over the years, that real simcha in a person's life comes when they are spiritually growing on the inside. When you are a growing person, when you feel yourself being accomplished, when you feel yourself changing on the inside, when you're elevating your avodas Hashem, your mitzvahs, and you feel yourself moving in that right direction, says the pasuk over here, it's smicha, it's a growing, the inner spiritual growing brings a person to happiness. And everybody, I think, knows this for themselves. When you feel stagnant, when you feel that you're going down, when you feel that you're not changing, when you feel that things are getting worse, nobody feels good about themselves. Nobody feels good that I'm doing such good in the eyes of Hashem. But when there's a tzmicha, when there is a growth, when there is the juices are running and there's an enthusiasm and there's a koyach that a person has in his life and they're moving and growing and growing and growing, that's simcha, that's where joy comes from. The second word, which is alutz, is related to the word chalatz, choletz. What is choletz? Choletz is the emotion that accompanies the inner liberation and relief from restraining bonds. Chalutza means the cutting off. That means that every one of us has these things that are locking us up, that we can't perform in the mitzvahs the way that we want to. We just can't commit ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu the way that we want to. We struggle with certain things for years and years and years and years and years on end, and it's locking us up. Says the pasuk over here, what is the kind of simcha that we're talking about? When those chains are broken And the things that have been holding you back 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, when they disappear, when they are gone, that is spiritual liberation and freedom. That's a joy for a person. There's the simcha of growing, that's one thing, but there's also that when the shackles that are holding me back in life, which make it so hard for me to go forward and do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do, when that's broken, somebody just told me that there's, this I heard on Friday, that he knows people that have been in fights for years and years and years. Silly fights over business, over money, over silly things. They don't talk to each other. The wives can't talk to each other. They never see each other. The whole situation in Eretz Yisrael is going on. And we need a lot of schuyos. We need a lot of merits right now. We need a lot for protection. These people didn't talk for years, hating each other. They decided, you know what? As a schus for Klal Yisrael, we're going to make up. And we'll stop hating each other. And we'll stop telling our wife, don't talk to her. Don't go there. Can't do this. Can't do that. We're going to stop right now. And this person told me he knows people that for years have held their anger against each other and their lack of communication against each other, and they're just fury at each other. They made up during this time. They made peace with each other, and everyone's the better for it. Says the pasuk over here that chalutz, alutz, is when you have these shackles that are chaining you down, that are holding you back, and you can't break free. When you do break free, wow, it's so liberating. And that's a simcha, that's a joy for a person. And the last thing he says is sois. What is sois? From the Lashon of tzotz, tzadi vav tzadi, which is the sensation of the blossoming forth of the Spirit. When you blossom. It's very much related to all these things, but it's when you can blossom, when you can open your leaves, when you can open up your mind. There's different things that are going on inside of you that finally, after all these years in the darkness and the hibernation, begins to open up. It's a great feeling, says Dovid HaMelech, and all of that is going to bring you to the level of simcha. And when is that going to come? That's going to come when we recognize how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. That's the tzaddikim who've been waiting all of these years for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal himself in such a way. So they're just going to be amplified in their avodas Hashem. And he writes over here that the idea that there's a God who judges all of us and that we are accountable to is the biggest nightmare to a Russia. A Russia doesn't want to hear this. There's a Rabbi Nishaylom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't want to hear about that. He's watching everything I do. He's listening to everything I say. He's judging this back and forth, all these things. I don't want to hear that. That bothers the rush of the wicked person. Deep in his heart, the wicked man cannot ignore the idea that really it's probably true, and therefore it's a source of torment for him, and it makes really, when he thinks about it, it kind of destroys his pleasure here in this world. However, the tzaddik who's faithful to his duty, the same idea that makes a Russia upset is the exact thing that makes a tzaddik so happy. Why? Because it means there's a Rebbeinu Shalom. He's watching me. He's involved in my life. He knows what I'm doing. This schar v'einish. He's keeping me on track. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking me to get closer and closer. And he's pulling me in closer and closer. And therefore, the ultimate joy of the tzaddikim is when the shackles come off, when the growth is there, when they're blossoming all the beauty that's inside the neshama. That is the greatest joy in their life. So those who will loyally fulfill their task rejoice, and they derive their own sense of freedom from the knowledge that they have lived their lives livnei Elokim. They live before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They don't live shoved away somewhere and not living before. They live before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who himself is the master of the universe and taking care of all of us. And that's the kind of joy that is blossoming forth of their spirit. So tzaddikim are always looking for another chance to get closer to Hashem. What do I have to do? I have to grow. If I have things that are holding me back, I have to get rid of them. And I have to allow myself to blossom in areas, it's like when the tree every year, the blossoms fall off, the fruits die, the tree withers, And it comes back every year. That means every year that tree is blossoming again. And it's a new fruit. It's not an old fruit. It's not a new flower. It's not an old flower. It's a new flower. It's a new fruit. That the apples from last year were eaten already. That means there's got to be a hischadshus, there has to be a newness. That a person is able, no matter how old and how long they've been at it already, they got to keep bringing something new into their mitzvah, something new into their tefillah, every davening. I heard once from, I want to say it's the mother of Rebbitzin. There used to be a Rav Yaakov Byron who lived in Los Angeles. His wife's mother used to say that if you daven in the Shemona Esrei and you didn't have one new idea or connection to Hashem, then it wasn't really a Shemona Esrei. I mean, there should never be a Shemona Esrei that passes in your life that you don't find something new in one of the words, in one of the meanings, in one of the connections you have with Hashem. Something should be new. That's what he said. That's a blossom. Blossom is the tree has renewed itself. So we're renewing ourselves. Every year we have to come up with something new in our Avodas Hashem, something new in our davening, new in our learning, new in our midos, new in our Yiras Shamayim, something new. And that itself is the biggest simcha, that's the greatest joy. When I'm progressing, when I'm moving, when I'm removing the shackles, when I'm blossoming every single year with newness, that's the joy, and that's the joy of tzaddikim, and that's what they are looking forward to. And therefore, that's the kavanah, that is the direction. Let's just finish off with the words of the Malbim over here. He writes, "V'tzadikim yismechu ya'alzu livnei Elokim." V'tzadikim rejoice in Hashem. Ki ha'ores ha'shchina, because the revelation of the Shechina, shula rishoyim ashan ulahava, to the rishoyim it's smoke, and it's fires. Yiletzadikim anan v'noiga v'simcha v'sasayin. But to tzadikim, it's like a cloud that's hovering around us, that's protecting us, that's bringing us the comfort and the safety and the closest to Hashem. That's joy. V'yasisu b'simcha, simcha yismechu b'Hashem. This joy that a person will have with Hashem, to oirer misais begilu b'roisam. It's aroused and awakened when we feel so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's revealing Himself. Ki Hashem imam, Hashem is with them. When you feel that Hashem is here, when you feel that He's in your life, when you see Him, when you recognize Him, when you're serving Him, that's the greatest joy that a person can have. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, during this time in history, doesn't want sad Jews walking around the world worrying all day long. He wants us to recognize the revelation that Hashem is bringing to the world, and that's supposed to make us rejoice. Why? Because we will take advantage. We will, number one, we will start to grow more than we've been growing. Number two, something that's been holding us back, we got to let go, and we have to serve Hashem in that way. And number three, we got to blossom. It has to be fresh, has to be new. Find something new that we could do, and that itself will leave us b'simcha as we continue to wait and hope with great anticipation for the coming of Mashiach. You're welcome. You're welcome.